Welcome to the March 6, 2025 special meeting regarding the superintendent search process. This meeting is the board's opportunity to provide the qualities we would each like to be considered when hiring a new superintendent. Mrs. D'Encino, will you please call?
Clerk Hills, Member Kelly, President Perry,
Here.
Member Malczewski, Member Morgan.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? Agenda adopted 5-0. As a quick reminder, we had a special session yesterday afternoon designed to understand the process behind how we set curriculum at the district. For those who may have missed it, I would encourage you to listen to the recording if you get a chance. On another item, yesterday I announced that effective immediately, we are moving back to our long-standing practice of limiting public comment to 3 minutes with an optional 30-second extension to allow speakers to wrap up their points. The microphone will go dead at that point and speakers will be asked to return to their seats. This is due to recent disruptive actions from some who have negatively impacted meeting decorum. Let me be clear that any disruptive behavior in the meeting room will not be tolerated, and I've instructed our SRO to escort anyone doing this out of the room. Clapping and booing speakers will also not be allowed. Instead, those who wish to support something can wave your fingers in the air, similar to what is done at City Council. Now, let's go to the reason we are here today, the superintendent search. Not yet. The good news is that we are starting from a very strong position as a school district, and I am sure our consultants agree. Over the past 20 years or more, we have been and continue to be a top performing district in Orange County, and that's a great place to be. We are also lucky enough to be one of the wealthiest districts in California. This gives us a flexibility many other districts just don't have, because it allows us to attract and retain the very best staff and to fund educational programs for our kids. Finally, we are lucky to be a smaller district. This affords us the flexibility to move quickly if needed, to adapt to changes around us, and to support maximum opportunities for our kids. As we continue the process of seeking a superintendent for our schools, these foundational elements are good starting points, but we can and should aspire to be even better. Let's seek our best candidates, not only in California, but across the country. We can afford it, our kids deserve it. So let's move forward. Thank you. And now, we will have public comment on this item, but we need to limit it to 20 minutes because we have a lot and we have to finish it tonight. So, comments?
Yeah, I've been requested that the first speaker be Nuth Morris.
Thank you all, board and guests. I'm actually not nervous, I'm cold. So I apologize, I'm not used to this. But father of 3 in the district. So G.K. Chesterton said, "Do not remove a fence until you know why it was put up in the first place." And this has become known as Chesterton's fence. And the lesson of Chesterton's fence is that what already exists likely serves a purpose that might not be immediately obvious. In my career as a board member, I've done a number of chief executive searches, and I and the other board members have always approached the process with the utmost humility. We work to keep staff working on their jobs and continuing to keep the mission going. And we as board members certainly had ideas of what could be improved in the companies, but in reality, we lacked the details to have a good perspective. Once we found a new CEO, they spent the first 90 days or so just learning the business. Then they came back with the board for suggested actions. Neither the board nor the CEOs removed any fences until everybody understands their purpose. And I urge the board to do the same in this case. I found the content of last night's meeting to be very informative on curriculum and weighting. However, I don't agree with the forum. Setting up a board meeting is a weighty action. The short notice meant that 2 board members who have experience in the process were unable to attend. The early hour meant that many parents were unable to attend. And the short notice also forced staff to have to scramble to prepare for the meeting. Now, it's entirely true that the community can go back and watch the meeting. However, it's over 2 hours and they're unlikely to do so. A better path would have been to give staff time to prepare a concise presentation on the subject. The content could be boiled down to 15 minutes or so and be created with deliberation as opposed to scrambling. Many people would read the content and it could be distributed in any number of forms. So I asked that the board be much more judicious with the time of the staff and of the community. Also, I asked that the board focus on the main task at hand, namely finding a superintendent. The message from Leadership Associates is that the board needs to learn how to work together in order to attract an excellent candidate, and I can't imagine that last night's meeting helped that. I ask you all to come together to find a superintendent that can take us from being the best school district in Orange County to being the best school district in the state of California. So, on an aside, my day job is in technology, and I'll say that the hype around AI is very real. So when the topic of the UC course weighting came up, I spent about 10 minutes with an AI tool that gave a very good summary of the concept, the process, and the implications of course weighting. The tool gave a good summary of how university admissions work, both public and private, and the trade-offs that school districts have to make in evaluating these decisions. So I would suggest that the next set of complications that come up, that you all use a tool like this. I would say Google Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, they're all good. They don't take a lot of time to learn, and they can really educate us all to enter these conversations more informed. Thank you all.
Meredith McMahon and Carol Nilsson.
Hi. I probably don't need to do an intro. I think we all know each other by now. But just in case, I'm top of the world PTA, and I have 2 kids in the district, PTA president, and 2 kids in the district, and the daughter of a teacher who dedicated 35 years in the school district. But before I begin, I must express something that's deeply frustrating. I'm glad to see the arrangements of the tables have been changed for today, but I found it troubling to see the board physically sitting higher than the staff. Aren't we as a district, don't we value equality and mutual respect? Don't we teach our students that everyone deserves to be treated with the same level of respect and dignity? It raises a larger question. Why did the board find it necessary to spend time raising their seats higher? No one in this room is more important than the person next to them. We're all here with one reason, the students. It is difficult to see eye to eye, both literally and figuratively, when we aren't sitting at the same level. I urge you to remember that leadership is not about power, but about service and collaboration. Beyond the seating arrangements, what is even more concerning is the chaos that has unfolded over the past few months. This board has created an atmosphere of uncertainty and division within our district. The sudden changes in leadership, the lack of transparency in decision-making, and the disregard for the voices of teachers, staff, parents, and students have only deepened the divide. Instead of fostering unity and focus on the well-being of our students, the board's actions have fueled confusion and frustration. We deserve better. Our students deserve better. It is time for this board to refocus on what truly matters, providing a stable, supportive, and inspiring environment for our children. Leadership means setting an example, listening with empathy, and making decisions with the best interests of the entire school community at heart. I urge you to reflect on the impacts of your actions and make a sincere effort to restore trust and integrity. Our district's strength lies in its people, the teachers who inspire, the staff who support, the parents who care, and the students who strive to learn and grow. Let's not lose sight of that. Thanks.
Meeting, or did the staff decide about this evening?
Good evening. I'm Carol Nielsen. Some of you I've known for a while. Others of you I'm only getting to know. Some of you I've observed at school board meetings in years past. I taught here for a number of years, only it wasn't 35, it was 34. And I've spent years working with a number of superintendents through negotiations, also as union president and other union offices, and I can tell you the character of those people shines through in every exchange that they have. So of course you're going to be careful, very careful of who you hire. The most successful people that I've worked with led from a dedication to egalitarian principles. They saw the students, the families, and of course, the teachers, maybe not as hierarchical equals, but certainly as individuals that they could respect and that they would work with individually and collectively. They embraced creativity, led with flexibility, and were comfortable with a range of opinions when confronted with something that didn't match their own. The outgrowths of this style resulted in positive environments on the campuses. Not perfect, but generally positive. A trust between and among various so-called levels of employees. And I urge you to seek out those traits. In my experience, they reveal balanced characters and people who would easily move into our district and accept our own quirks and be able to lead us positively. Thanks.
Leslie Elliott and Kim Smith.
Hi, I'm Leslie Elliott. I've lived in town 45 years, raised 2 children through the schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. I've never had a bad experience. I can honestly say everything about their education was wonderful, and I hope that I can say the same for my grandchild now. First, I want to thank Leadership Associates for your contribution at last week's governance meeting. Your expert guidance has brought invaluable insights as the board sets a new path forward. To the board, over the course of the evening last week, Leadership Associates spoke to the need for the board to speak as one, of an overarching role of the board and the need for big picture thinking, noting that the role of the school board should step back, survey, and chart a course for the future rather than micromanaging day-to-day issues. They also stressed the importance of rising above the temptation to react solely to immediate concerns. This included understanding the proper role in addressing concerns, that individual parent issues should be directed to the appropriate channels, such as teachers, site leaders, or relevant district personnel, rather than becoming board-level matters. Unfortunately, not even a few days later, and immediately ignoring the advice of the experts who were attempting to help the board align, 3 majority members of the board called for a special emergency meeting to discuss curriculum after hearing from some parents regarding curriculum confusion. In doing so, they disregarded the recommended school board role in addressing concerns. Unfortunately, 2 board minority members, the assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum and Victoria Weber, had previously scheduled engagements. The majority board members forged ahead with the meeting. 2 board members were unable to attend, while employees hastily rearranged their schedules in order to represent themselves. I have several issues with the way this meeting unfolded. First, the disregard of expert advice. The decision to hold this meeting so soon after receiving guidance on proper governance governance rules suggest a casual dismissal of expert recommendations. Second, addressing curriculum issues based on a few parent complaints or questions falls squarely into the realm of day-to-day management, which you explicitly advise to avoid. Third, by elevating individual parent concerns to a board-level issue, you bypass the proper channels of communication and problem-solving within our district. Last, the abrupt scheduling of the meeting caused exclusion of 2 board members and was an unnecessary disruption for district employees. Many staff members felt compelled to rearrange their schedules at the last minute, creating undue stress and inefficiency. The scheduled time of 3:30 also coincided with after-school pickup, making it difficult to attend. All these actions undermine the collaborative nature
Excuse
of
me.
effective
You've been extended an extra 30 seconds.
Thank you. Effective governments and showed a lack of respect to fellow board members, staff, and community. Moving forward, I ask that the school board actively participate in these sessions with leadership associates and integrate information and knowledge to create collaborative environment. In closing, I'm concerned about finding a strong superintendent becomes harder and harder every time you deviate from these government's norms. I'm also
Thank you. The board would like you to take your seat.
Just a reminder, this is a special meeting, so when you're making comments, it has to be about the superintendent search.
Lovely. Great. Hi, my name is Kimberly Smith, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak this evening. I want to briefly share my perspective, both as a parent in the district and as someone with pretty extensive board governance experience, as I currently serve on 3 board of directors, one of which I chair. I mention this because I know firsthand the weight of the responsibility that comes with this governance, the difficulty of decision-making that must be made, and the importance of structure and accountability in serving an organization effectively. With that in mind, I strongly support the governance training that has been discussed, and I want to commend Leadership Associates for leading it. Because from where I sit, the past few months have been utter chaos. And it's clear that structure, a firm understanding of roles and responsibilities, and informed decision-making are extremely critical to get us through these rocky times. Ms. Morgan and Mr. Hills. Mr. Hills, hi, I'm Kimberly. I voted for you. And I admit, in this moment, I am actually embarrassed that I made that decision because I was asleep at the wheel. And it's very apparent that I'm not the only one because of the outpouring of support of other parents in the community. It is quite telling. But I was asleep at the wheel because I believed that we were safe. Safe in the hands of the school district that has long supported, guided, and educated our children. And that safety was built by past board members and current board members, by past and current staff and teachers, the very people whose shoulders you now stand on. Please stop stomping on them. I was frustrated with yesterday's meetings for a myriad of reasons, many of which Ms. Elliott already discussed. But it was so shocking to me how delighted I was in the moment when I heard you applaud the staff instead of blaming them for something. So right now, the reason why I'm here is because, as we know, the board has one priority, and that is hiring a superintendent. The district's operations are in strong, capable hands with our staff and our teachers. Please trust them. They're keeping things running while you all focus on what should be your sole mission, finding a stellar superintendent. Nothing else should take priority at this moment, and we can't afford to lose good staff because the board is constantly questioning everything and berating them instead of empowering them. This is a real fear in our community. I don't want to regret my vote. I really don't. I know you can feel the engagement of the parent community, and I'm confident that you will have our support again. Slow down. Do your homework. Please remember that you were elected not to own but to serve. Thank you.
Simpson already speak? Oh, please.
Hello, board, and can you hear me? Good. And staff, I am Carly. I am Carly Simpson, I'm proud parent of 3 kids, one who graduated from the high school and another one who is a 9th grader and at Thurston. I respectfully request the board to work together as a group of 5 governing board members, and in doing so, schedule meetings with best practice, intention, and transparency. It is important that all board members and stakeholders be given sufficient notice to attend and prepare for these meetings. The meeting held yesterday was scheduled within 48 hours' notice, and 2 board members were unavailable. Grade weighting and curriculum are both very important topics, and I feel all members of the board should have a voice in the discussion. The staff and administration did an incredible job of explaining the process and reasoning with the current policy and standards. I hope that all board members will collaborate with Leadership Associates Consultants in the superintendent search to identify the most qualified candidates for our exceptional schools. It is essential that every board member actively participates in this important process and decision-making, ensuring that all 5 voices are heard. I hope the board will work with teachers, staff, administration, and community stakeholders throughout the process. Thank you.
I have to start by calling out the same absurdity that Meredith did of the seating arrangement from last night. The newly raised seating that looks like you're sitting on thrones for the board members alone is completely inappropriate. The decision to physically elevate yourselves above the staff and administration appears that you genuinely believe you are more important than the incredibly talented and dedicated professionals that you now have seated beneath you. If that is not your intent, I highly suggest you rethink that decision. Instead of you focusing on how high you can get your chairs, I really wish you would spend your time figuring out how to work as the collective, impactful school board that our students and this community so desperately deserve. You continue to ask for our patience and grace as you work towards becoming a united board, a unity that Mrs. Lynch stressed as essential to attracting the best possible superintendent for our students, teachers, and staff. Yet on Monday night, the majority chose to schedule a school board meeting for 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday without consulting your fellow minority board members to ensure their availability. You moved forward without them and disregarded the strain and demands this placed on staff, inconsiderate of parents' schedules. This is not the work of United Board. It only deepens division. Yesterday's discussion focused on curriculum, particularly at the high school level, and included a look at grade weighting, both in terms of how these classes and their grades impact students, college preparedness, and admissions. While I don't have a high schooler, I fully understand the importance of these topics and the level of expertise required to make the best decisions. Dr. Mayberry and Dr. Allman stood up here and did a fantastic job addressing every question, demonstrating their knowledge and deep expertise on the subject. I want to level set on the knowledge and career experience of our existing school board who sit before us today. Member Morgan, your career experience, as I understand it, is as a graphic designer. Member Hills, your career has been in the world of legal, government, and international relations. Member D, while you have an impressive many decades career of educational experience, it was at the elementary level. Member Malcheski is currently a professor at UCI, has had a multi-decades career in higher education and research. Member Kelly also has a multi-decades career in higher education experience. His most recent role was as the president of a college. I don't think I need to explain enough why it is important to have all of you present and the one with the most experience when the conversation warrants them being here. Please stop creating unnecessary spin. Listen to the experienced leaders you've hired, like Peggy, who are here to guide you through this challenging board transition and superintendent search.
Most importantly, trust the exceptional educators in our district to make the best decisions for our students and believe them when they tell you what is needed. Thank you.
Okay. Tonight, Dr. Peggy Lynch and Dr. Mark Ecker will guide us in the process to solicit board feedback and the qualities we would each like to see in potential candidates to the position, for the position of our new superintendent. Meetings are currently being set up with other groups, and more information will follow on those.
Thank you very much. So we want to start with the kind of the things we're going to cover tonight, and I'll go through that rather quickly, and then we'll come back and pick up the information. So I've gone over the search procedure. You saw that in the timeline, the original proposal. Basically, this is our first full meeting where we're going to gather input about what the board wants in the new superintendent. We're going to talk about the groups we'll meet with during the input session. We'll talk about the online survey. We'll go through some detail things that need to be clarified just to make sure everybody knows what's going on. So I'm going to run through that kind of thing, and then we'll move in ultimately to what we'll go through the input from the board about what you're looking for in a new superintendent. What you see is the challenges for the district, and what you see is the strengths of the district. So we'll spend time on that. It is in your packet. There's 2 packets, and so you have one that looks like that one. So just that's kind of the level we're going to go. First of all, typically we have a board liaison that is usually the board president for us to contact on a quick thing that we need information on. Normally, everything goes to every board member, but if we need some quick information, we would normally work with the board president if that's okay with everybody. That just makes it a little more efficient for us when we're trying to get quick information. And we will also, your executive assistant, Victoria, has received all the materials from our executive assistant who's assisting on search. So she has all the documents, how you word language, all of those kinds of things for every agenda when we meet. She has all of that information, as well as simple samples of the templates we'll use for input, all that. I just want to know that's already done.
Communicating with Mrs. Perry, because I've lost all faith in her. Since she's assumed this role, she has been not collaborative at all. She has been making decisions on her own and not involving the full board, as far as I know.
Okay, I'd be happy to. And I just want
second
you to know,
that.
really, that typically it's a very quick information thing, like I need this, but it's everything else we send to every board member. And we have all your email addresses already. We have your cell phone number so we can reach you if we need to. But that'll come periodically. You're going to get updates from us, like where we are in the process, how many candidates we potentially have who've applied, that kind of thing. So you'll get that from all of us, okay? So the other thing we would do is we want to talk a little bit about the groups that we'll be meeting with. And if you go to the 3rd page of the packet that's there, we list some examples of the kinds of people we typically meet with in districts. So for example, obviously our first one is the Board of Education. That's tonight. We'll get that done. We could talk, these are optional groups. We don't have to meet with everybody, but these are typical. We sometimes talk to former board members. We talk to the current superintendent, cabinet, district leadership reps, like that could be directors, principals, all those kinds of groups. Classified staff, opening it up so classified staff can come to a meeting, so confidential staff, certificated staff, those, Teachers Association, CSE Executive Board, the CSEA Executive Board. We'll meet with student groups. We can do that easily. Former any partner groups, whether it's your PTA reps, your different kinds of groups that you might have that are parent representatives. DLAC, ELAC, if we have that to deal with. Community partners, that would be like service clubs, city, any of the community organizations that you have interactions with that we would want to meet with, if your foundation, and then we have an open community forum. Usually it's in early evening so that parents and anybody can come to that. We do the same kind of thing. We ask them what are the characters, qualities, experiences they'd like to see. I took the opportunity earlier this week to talk with Victoria about any groups that might have this coming week, and I'll explain why, this coming week who had regularly scheduled meetings that we could sit in on so that we wouldn't have to try and, because with the other groups, you're going to have to send notification, and you can't get it started by next Monday. You've got to give them time for their schedules. So we're looking at actually on the timeline, the week of March 17th, when we would do those other groups. Some of them are Zoom. That's easy for a lot of people rather than trying to get to meetings. And, parking in your places are a little trickier than other places, so we kind of try to do that, but we'll have that. And then, but I did schedule the Teachers Association had an executive board meeting on Monday, so I'm scheduled already to go to that. Your cabinet meets next week, and so does your leadership team, so that would be your principal. So I'll be at those meetings, and then I'll also meet with confidential staff the same day. So,
All the PTAs met this week.
yeah, sorry about that.
I was in 3 different ones of them, and you would have enjoyed it immensely.
I would have, I'm sorry. But this week I've been busier than I even want to know about. So I wouldn't have had any time to meet anybody. Plus, I bought a new car yesterday, so that's all good. So I just want you to know, these are the kinds of groups. So sometimes in districts, they don't have service clubs that they have necessarily great partnerships with, and so that's not as important. We usually invite, like service club reps, and let's take that, to a Zoom meeting all set together. Like if it's Kiwanis, Rotary, whatever it might be, we would have all them together in one session. So what we need from you to do, and we'll come back to that, is really who do you want us to talk to? One thing you need to know about the input part. So we're going to get input from you. We're going to get input from all those groups. We're going to have online survey. You have the draft of it in there. We're going to then take all of that information. We'll come up with what we call a position description. It is the description of the major qualifications, experiences that people are looking for in their new superintendent, okay? And so we'll get that done. Once we have the timeline set, we'll pull all that together to write that position description, which the whole board will review. You'll have an opportunity to review that, of course.
Has got in touch with me. They'll hold a special meeting whenever you want.
All right.
The council, yes.
Yeah, council, that's perfect. So we'll talk about those
And they're
dates.
watching.
Yeah, what I want to do is, when we get the groups today, is then we'll work with Victoria to start to schedule those sometime that week of that March 17th. And so we'll have the groups broken out. I just went ahead and got the groups that already had meetings scheduled this week to get that done, so we don't have to worry about that for the following week. And they're inside groups, so they're a little easier to get to than if it's community members and that kind of thing that aren't here on the job every day, okay? So I need you to look at, you have that packet, right?
I don't, but.
Do you have an extra packet? Does she have an extra packet? She has an extra packet. I need you to tell me what groups here that you want us to meet. This is, the list is there on that, it's on your 3rd page in terms of groups. Yeah, it's based on your community. These are samples of what we typically meet with. Some districts don't have a DLAC, for example, or they don't have an ELAC. So we just want to pick the groups that you have that make sense. So PTA obviously is one of those. Okay, so yeah, the combined one, yeah. Yeah, PTA council, okay. Other groups that like I said, we're covering the board, the superintendent, the cabinet, the district leadership, and the Teachers Association. So I've got 5 groups already taken care of on that list. So are there other groups? And students, I talked to Carter last week when we were here, and I told him, and he'll arrange whatever we need. So we can work with
I
Carter.
was just going to say that of all these groups here, I would place very high priority on the
Absolutely,
students.
yeah. And I talked to him, like I said, last week about it.
Yeah, and they might even be able to, Carter and the other student representative, she's also somebody that you should talk to, and
Yeah.
and they can probably pick out some student groups,
Correct.
Campus organizations or whatnot,
Yeah.
and talk to them about curriculum, talk to them about college applications and college readiness and that kind of.
But we're going to ask them what they want in the new superintendent too.
Right,
And
no, I
what they see
understand.
as the strengths and challenges, because that's really important. And they have very good ideas, by the
Yeah.
way. So I assume you have a foundation, correct? So we would meet with them. How about, okay,
We have a couple of foundations. We have the Scholarship Foundation, and then we have the School Power Foundation.
Okay,
which
so
both
we-
should be
yeah.
both those groups.
yeah, okay, great.
And then I don't know if the endowment group is a separate, I mean, it is a separate group, but that
Should-
be. What? Do they meet at the same time? It's 2 different groups. There's an endowment committee for school
Okay.
power. It's the school power endowment.
Okay. Okay. Confidential staff and classified staff will work with them to get whenever that works. That's usually after school, unless with so few schools, there's a chance we could do it at the school site and do some of that. So we'll work on that by site. Yeah, yeah. We've already got the Teachers Association scheduled, the executive board. And CSEA, I talked to, I can't remember your name. Yeah, that we're going to schedule a time for the CSEA executive. They didn't have one scheduled for next week, so I just worked with what we could.
We do have a meeting on the 12th
Oh, what time?
at 3:15, I think.
Okay, we might be able to do that. Okay. So that one will get set pretty easily.
That covers you pick up the staff or the
Yeah.
certificated staff in that as well, right?
Yeah.
The board, but their boards are separate.
Yeah, the executive boards from each association, we usually meet with separately.
We also have a parents group, Fuel, that is,
The
has
political
gotten
one.
together for the sole purpose of getting parents who are interested in the schools.
They're a political group, though. Would they be in the open community forum?
Could be, but it could be separate. It's either up to you. I just have a question about parent partners. What about boosters? Is that,
They're all the athletic boosters.
yeah, so we could have a separate, okay.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if you could combine some of these groups, so it wasn't so many
Yeah, we
meetings.
often can, depending on the size of them. But if a lot of them are by Zoom, it's actually not that hard, right? Because we can have a group of 7 in a Zoom meeting, and that goes pretty easily. I mean, I've been doing them, so, you know, we'll work with Victoria on how we schedule them. But we would combine groups, like, as I said, if we have Rotary Club, like on the foundations, there's three foundations, we'd probably have all 3 of them together. But the endowment sounds like it should be separate. And the Boys and Girls Club would be a separate thing. Often that's often just their executive director. Yeah, and so we can talk to them on the phone too. So it's not always that need to be in person.
Other than just the executive director.
Sure.
They have a great board, and I think
Oh,
that
okay.
it represents all the community, and I think it would be a much better
Okay.
for you.
We can work with
to
him on
get
that.
feedback.
Okay. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
We fund them for maybe close to $500,000.
How about DLAC, ELAC, is that active at all?
With the parents and the students.
Okay.
Do you have city council or the city on here?
Not yet, that's
So-
your community partners.
Yeah.
Sometimes we ask the city manager to get a couple council people together and we talk with them, so we can work. Yeah,
They were
course.
pretty relevant in the last couple of years.
yeah.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
had a pretty
Okay.
fluid relationship.
Is there any other type of community group or,
So I recall this, when we did the search several years ago, or 9 years ago now, we had several community group opportunities. So like the specific partners were focused. They would have a scheduled meeting.
and that's why number 14's there, 16's there, that's the community open forum.
Yeah, so but they had like 2 or 3 so that you could, like a morning, middle, afternoon, and like a,
Yeah, we can do different things with that.
so that at least
And we'll work-
everybody has a chance to capture one, even if it's all on the
Yeah.
same day. You have a different opportunity time-wise.
And we'll work with Victoria to schedule how we schedule it. They have, for facility purposes, a lot of them have to be after school, just because you don't have a lot of room to do it on the campus unless it's school's closed a day or something. where
Can
we
you do it, does it have to be on campus? Can you use a space someplace else? I mean, there's a lot of city space that you could possibly tap into, either at the Suzy Q or the rec center down in,
I'll talk with Gloria about, Gloria, why do I call it Victoria about that? Okay.
that might help expedite, because I know that the
We'll get,
city
we have
president-
options on that, and there's both of us. What we try to do, just so if you go back a page to the timeline, the draft timeline, is that we want to try that week of March 17th to finish all the input. We really want to get everything done within that week, because if we extend it too long, then it moves all the timeline out. And we want to try and focus on that week to get as much done as we can. Yeah, thank you. It's really, we want to get, we want to get you going on it. So we want to make sure we have that all set up. So that's kind of from the groups. If somebody else thinks of something, and if there's somebody you want me to talk to, or, just let me know their name and we can figure it out, okay?
As far as the churches, Our next door neighbor is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Okay.
Saints.
So
And I think
faith-based
that
groups?
there's a.
Faith-based kind of work.
Faith-based
Okay.
groups,
Yeah,
Jim?
and the other is the Chamber of Commerce and the Realtors, because we do such a great job of enhancing the cost of housing here that I think the Realtors would have an awful lot of good things to say about.
So we can work with people to get those people collected. Sometimes they have their own meetings, too.
Yes.
We might be able to tap into it.
Yeah, it does. Exactly. And Peggy, I was going to mention, timing is very important because this drives the position description. And the position description that we draft goes to all the board. So what we're going to need is consensus, because that's what your future candidates are going to be looking at in terms of their match
Yeah.
to this.
Now, the next thing is the online survey, and we've got it in there. This is the format we've used. It works very well. I'm doing a district where we had over 2,000 people respond to the online survey. We can translate it into Spanish, of course, and if there's other languages that you think of. But this is, it has worked very well for us. And you'll notice it gives an overview of the introduction. It asks them to tell us who they are, whether they're a community member, parent, teacher, classified, et cetera. We then ask them to talk about, they see the strengths of the district, challenges, what's important for the next superintendent to know about our community, and any other qualities. And what I'm going to tell you is, and then let me just finish, then it asks them to rank the desired professional experience, and it asks them to rank the desired professional leadership characteristics, and then the personal characteristics. What I would say to you is, this looks like it's a short survey. It'll be a lot of pages, because people write all their comments in. So they can just rank, but then they can add all the comments they want. So I describe it as, I think I might have said this earlier, I describe it as like the WASC accreditation. It's like a self-study. It's sort of, you're going to get information about how people are feeling, what they want, what they see as the challenges, what they see as works well around here, all of those kinds of things. So it does a couple things. It adds to of course, the position description. It talks to us about what kind of candidates we want to recruit. And it also helps you define what kinds of questions you're going to ask in an interview. Because if these things are the most important thing, I'm dealing with a district right now that it's very important that somebody understands facilities and school bonds. That's just a big deal. So we're going to ask a question in the interview about that work, right? Because that's just a big, big priority for that particular district. So it helps us really shape a lot of things by the survey and all the input we get, okay?
No, their experiences working with a new board, a developing board.
Okay, let me look at that. I'll write something down, see if we can add, how we can add that.
Because those are really important skills I believe that we need at this time.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on this one, the survey part?
Very nice.
Okay, great. So we'll get that ready to go. We'll work with Victoria to get it, how it gets online, how it gets advertised that it's up. It's on your website, and it's a link, and we recommend, I believe she's already started to work on this, a kind of a superintendent's search page, a link, if you will, and it'll be on there. People just click on it, fill it out. It comes to us. It doesn't go to anybody else. We get all that data. When we finish all the input, we'll also write an executive summary. And that executive summary will talk about how many people responded, what they said, here's the major characteristics, all the kinds of things. That's about a 6-page or so document that we summarize everything we've learned from the input. So, yeah.
Keeping with my colleagues, I would, the comments that Mr. Kelly just said, I would also suggest that you add on the professional experience, somebody who's dealt with a board that needs renewal, needs rejuvenation, and needs work on governance and compliance with state code and bylaws and whatnot. In other words, his point is very well taken. When you got a new board and it's adjusting and it's going through transition, it'd be interesting to find out what the views are about that. But
Yeah.
on the same token, do we want somebody that had some experience dealing with a board that needed renewal and needed reform?
And so that'll be part of what, we'll put that on, we can put something like that on the survey, but that'll be part of what we're looking for when we're talking to people.
Understood.
Yeah, we
But
want to really know that.
The point is, I think there should be some symmetry between what he was saying and what I was saying.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, positive changes.
Yeah, but it hasn't been very positive.
Well, depends on how you look at it.
I'm sorry, other than English and Spanish, do you need another language, or is that?
I would have them defer to the district and ask what languages we publish all of our documents in. Like, do we do, I know we do a lot with Spanish, but do we do a lot with Mandarin? Or, I know we have, I've seen a data point somewhere that said we have over 18 different languages, maybe even 20 different languages.
We
so
usually
I don't
look
know
at
what
the
priority
percent,
is, but-
there's a percent how you, in
yeah.
terms of what you put out.
Yeah, we have multiple languages, and in our parent score application that gets sent out to families, it actually auto-translates the language of choice for the family of what they input. But there's several languages, a lot of Mandarin, a lot of Spanish.
Yeah, we typically, well, we have Mandarin, so we could do that.
We could do Mandarin.
Unless, if you only, no offense to any languages, but if you don't have enough percentage, it's probably not going to get you much information. So we would do it. And we also ask the principals to spread the word among their faculty and staff to do the survey. And I already spoke with your association presidents about them supporting the survey and getting that information out.
Right.
We can get you those percentages. I'll pull that information for you.
All these groups, which might be another
Yeah.
way of getting the information in and out.
Yeah.
We can get those percentages.
Because we are tapping into the community, you have a lot of questions on here about, or a lot of, what your category is, and then different questions that relate to different community groups. Can we, is it now that we would discuss how we're going to get the word out? And how we would reach out, provide outreach to the community to do the survey? Like, are we going to post it
Yeah.
not just in the district communication, but I know we don't get
Yeah.
beyond the walls of the district, so how do we reach the community at large?
So typically what we do is the community, you have a blast of some sort that gets out to everybody that you have community, whether it's partners and that kind of thing. But we also, sometimes the city will put it on their website and the city will do it. So that's another resource for us to help. And then if all the other groups, like your PTA puts out something, or when the Teachers Association, the Classified Association put out stuff, that really spreads the word pretty easily here. So.
Think about another point that's kind of unique about this district. We've got the community out at Newport Coast, and we got the community out at Aliso. And maybe there's a homeowners association or something in Newport Coast, and maybe a group or some kind of network out in Aliso, and figure out some way to outreach to them, because they end up tending to not be able to connect and participate. And they have, special, some of them, as communities, for example, they have different transportation challenges and whatnot. And I think when you talk in here, I think it's really important what you're saying there about, it's got to be the strengths and the weaknesses, and it's got to be all the community, not
Right.
just
Okay.
not particularly just a core, because there may be some people, and this goes to communications as well, there may be some people who just want to talk about what we all are so happy about, what great schools we have, but also trying to find out what the weaknesses are.
Okay.
Because when we can get those weaknesses identified, we can then work together to address them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we work with Victoria on
Yeah.
these things that
Yeah.
we can come up with a plan to be able to get, the whole idea is to get it out to as wide, a perimeter as we can. And I think if we work with Victoria,
Yeah.
we can do that.
Okay.
Information on the gal who does the PR for the city, all of the
Okay. That's great.
newsletters and
Jim,
all
that would be good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. So now the timeline. This is always the tricky part. Everybody got your calendars. So obviously, today's our first meeting. We would like, as close as possible, 10th is going to be a little tight to get the survey up, so we would probably try to start somewhere around the 12th, get the online survey up. We'll work with Victoria on that, and it would go till about the 21st. And that is also coinciding with the fact that we would do the input sessions the week of the 17th. So they're going to end at about the same time, okay? So all the input that we get. So that's, we have the input sessions, we are looking at just the week of March 17th, so you can put that down. You can see that the EdCal ads, this is the ad, this is the statewide Administrators Association newspaper. It's online as well, but it comes out and it is, those are the two ad dates that come up the closest for us to work with. And we usually try to do it 2 weeks in a row so that it's out right away. It'll also be on it's on our website, so people will be asking about it once they know the timeline. They don't know it yet. And then we anticipate closing April 4th. So that would be the deadline for applications. That doesn't affect you, it just affects us, because all we're going to do is take all that and then start all the reference checking. That is really our busy part, is really, do you have a question, Dee?
Yeah, do you ever reach out to specific superintendents? Like I'm thinking about like the top 10 school districts in California.
Yeah,
we do reach out to them because it might be very attractive to go from a district that has 80 schools to a district that has 4, a district that doesn't have to lay off people to.
Yeah, and I think, first of all, I think there's a combination of things. Obviously, it's an attractive area, attractive job. They have to be able to afford to live here. That's always, or close. That's fairly challenging sometimes. But we do reach out to specific candidates. However, we do not recruit people we have placed. So if we did a search in a comparable, let me pick a district, let's pick Palo Alto. If we had done the search in Palo Alto, and I'm not sure we did that one last time, I've done it a couple times, but I don't think I did the last one, we would not recruit him or her. We just would not.
Somebody you've placed,
But
it's
we
kind of
don't.
hands-off.
But otherwise, yes, we do.
And what about nationally?
So we have a lot of people nationally who are look at our website. I'm dealing with one in another district who's from Arizona, who really wants to be in Southern California. I have one in Washington State. So yes, we do have a national reach.
Right, we get a lot. Even in the smaller districts, D, you get out to state.
Can you specifically contact people that are running top school districts in the nation?
We don't have a way of particularly, I mean, we can figure out some ways, I suppose. We'll look at that as an option. We do get a lot of interest in our searches because we're.
Right.
You know,
I mean, I'm thinking like combining U.S. News and World Report and Niche and some of those other.
And we do have a lot of people, a lot of us are connected to national organizations, so we do know people who are interested nationally. One of the things that's always interesting, and it'll be interesting in your input, when we get all the input, is a lot of people may end up saying, we want somebody who has been in California, that they think that's more relevant than if they are nationally known, because it's not the same. So it varies, but yeah, we certainly have a national reach.
We do.
I was just thinking that somebody who's a top superintendent might not necessarily be looking. So
Correct.
they wouldn't look at that, but maybe if they were approached, they might be interested.
And that's true even in California, where we know superintendents that they may not be looking. I mean, you probably want somebody who's not looking necessarily, who's really wanting to come here. So that's part of what we do. And again, we have 20-plus partners who help us do this work.
Right. And many, you might want to share the whole idea about being, we might talk about the subscription, because on our website, there's a wide subscription. Once this is posted, as it is, that's, that blast goes out to over 1,200 to 1,500 individuals, many of them superintendents in, as you were saying, Dee, top district. So people know about Laguna Beach. We've already been approached by several individuals with questions. But we can certainly speak to individuals. We know a lot of them. Happy to talk, but I'm glad, Peggy, you mentioned the recruitment. We don't personally recruit. We can't prevent them from applying, but we can't personally, we don't personally recruit someone we've placed.
The 28th, boy, 28th, I'm not available.
Yeah, and I want to
I'm
go
out
to
of
that
state.
because we have a couple of issues on that now. So the next, so in between, after April 4th, it's our job to start all the work of all the reference checking, the recruiting, et cetera. So originally, we were thinking the week of April 21st, and that does not work for us, and for him in particular. And so but the week of April 28th, Dee has an issue, you have an issue. So I'm suggesting that we would meet the week of May 5th, where we would go over all the candidates.
The 9th.
To the 9th, okay.
What happens from April 4th to May 10th?
Well, we do the reference checking, the deep dive. It takes us quite a bit of work to find out.
It's a couple, at least a couple weeks of reference checking. Plus, we will prepare all the materials that you're going to review in a meeting of all the candidates. And so we'll finish all the reference checking. That is really it's really the meat of what we do. It takes the longest. It's the most important for us, that we want to make sure everything's covered carefully. So we'll do that after April 4th.
There wouldn't be a lot that you would be calling on us to be doing
No.
at this. So it would be a intensive time for you, but it would be a non-intensive time for us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Once we set the date where you're going to review the candidates, actually spend time reviewing the candidates, then we would send to you a link to a portal where you could review all the applications, all of them. Now, we will make some recommendations of people we think are best match based on everything we've heard and gathered from the input process, but it's still your decision of who you interview, of course.
Of course.
Would it be a good idea or a bad idea for, on April 4th, for us to get a list of the applicants, or? That's why you're saying it's a bad idea.
Bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
Bad idea.
Well, I was just testing you to see if you get that one right.
Thank you. I did get that one right, by the way. But I think it's really important that, to remember, this is a confidential process. You have people who are going to be applying that have to keep it pretty carefully quiet in their own situation so that they're not put at risk. So we're very careful. I think I mentioned this in our presentation. And we also pride on ourselves that the candidates like working with our search process because we treat them very respectfully and very confidentially, and that's really important.
And Dee, this goes to your point. The top superintendents, the ones who are, that their districts don't want to lose, confidentiality to those individuals is very, very important. And so the larger the window that these names are flying around, the greater the chance that you could lose some of these folks.
So to that point then, is there, if we're closing the deadline for applications on April 4th, and we're not all coming back together, because you're out of town starting when to when?
You don't want to push it back.
Out of state.
April
18th, which the only date that really affects me is the 28th, as far as by this schedule. And if there's a portal that I can evaluate the candidates on, I can give you that information. So that would be my input.
Right.
So we can have the meeting without you,
Yes.
Potentially.
as long as you have the
As long as I
confidential
have
portal and a means to get back to us.
Yes.
Give me your proxy.
Oh, God.
Okay, well, if that's the case.
So we could maybe.
You could text them and say, that's not what I said.
Because we could do all this 1, 2. We'd have to
Okay,
be
so that keeps
tight,
us,
but
that would
we
keep us
could-
on a more expeditious timeline, which I like.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have a meeting, and I know Jim is going to give his comments to you, but if we have a discussion or want to do an action, it would be me and the board majority, and you wouldn't be there to offer your wisdom and knowledge about all of these things. So
Well, yeah. So I'm
in a
just,
situation where I felt better about the role, I would be fine with that.
Yeah. Ideally, it's better if everyone's in the room.
well, here's another
Trying
option.
to work around it.
This will push us a little bit. Mostly it'll push him and me. But if we could move it toward, if we close on the 4th, which it kind of needs to be, we would be really working on our referencing the week of the 7th and the 14th, roughly. If we could do something on the 26th, a Saturday, we could do it of April.
But I think Jim's gone still. See, Jim's gone from the 18th to the 4th of May.
18th through May 9th.
May 9th?
Yeah.
This is before?
Fine, I just was saying, if it was possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
More comfortable,
It's
but
otherwise-
I am
yeah,
very capable of taking care of myself.
Yeah, I know.
so-
Yeah. Otherwise, we're moving the interviews out into May
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Well, and
Yeah. No, because the ads are the 17th and the 24th, and so it's the following week's the deadline. You got to advertise.
You can't, right. AXA won't fly an ad if you close it less than a week after the final,
yeah.
after the ad.
So that's why we close April 4th. And then we could do all the reference checks. But if we don't meet the week, if we don't meet for you to review the candidates around the week of the 21st, and you're not back until the 9th, then we're pushing out till mid-May. Okay.
isn't this, isn't it also too, because you're essentially guiding the whole process, so isn't that, what is the nature of that meeting? Is it to say, these are the candidates that we'd like to bring forward?
To interview.
On the 21st would be interviewing?
No, no.
Right, so what is the 21st that Jim is out of the country for, that it
what I
would be
was-
just the four of us, and, because then he'd be back. So this is, the meeting that is in question
Is the meeting where you're going to pick who you interview.
Right, so if he's forwarding his
Yeah, we could-
choices,
yeah.
then it's not as though not having
You're not
all
picking
of
the
us.
candidate.
Right,
Right,
so not
right.
having all of us here is not necessarily impacting
Right.
one or the other. It might add a few extra names because we aren't
Right.
we aren't eliminating by, we're not going to vote to eliminate. So I think it's a pretty neutral.
So how about if we try for April 26th?
That's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday. It would be probably a morning meeting. It's about 3 hours long typically. But that would give us time to get the referencing done, give you a chance to look at the portal of the candidate, looking at all the candidates' materials somewhere around the 18th or 19th. That would give you.
You said a Saturday meeting, the 19th or the
26th.
26th?
Would have to be the 26th.
Of April.
As long as it's morning.
April 26th.
And we're looking at about 3 hours, so it'd be like 9 to 12, something like
And
that.
that, it can be wherever you want. It's a closed session meeting, so wherever that works for you. But we can figure out the location later. So,
There's no sense in trying to push it up earlier in April because he's going to be gone.
Gone anyhow.
And so, yeah.
yeah. So April 26th,
Oh, you can't be there on the 26th.
and I can't Friday the 25th, so that I'm out of pocket on that. I mean, we can do Sundays. I mean, I've done Sundays before, so it's not a,
Is it
We can't do during the week?
huh?
Could we not do during the week?
Well, the only problem is we need a little bit more time to get it ready. We could do it the 24th,
What about Thursday, the 24th?
Thursday the 24th.
You can do that?
So it'd be really hard for me to,
How about later, like 4 o'clock? Okay. I can, Monday, the 28th? How about the 27th? You're going too?
Well, you said you teach at 12 on the 24th. How long is the process? Is that,
About 3 hours?
Gross.
can we do it in the morning?
On what day?
The 24th?
I'm not doing it right before I teach.
No, yeah, no.
Okay. 23rd.
Malczewski.
That's,
April 30th?
Uh-huh. Oh, you're still gone?
Well, what about the week of April 28th, 9th, 30th?
no,
Any of those?
she's gone.
Oh, you're
he's
gone that way.
The two of them are
Well,
gone.
yeah, I know that.
Both of them are gone. You can't, what time are you done teaching, John?
So I can get here by 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about 3 o'clock on the 24th?
Yeah.
Perfect, we'll make it work.
We'll make it-
Perfect.
April 24th?
And it'll be 3 o'clock. Okay?
Can't be here.
No.
No.
Honest, Yeah, district office is fine. It's a closed session meeting, basically, all of it. People could give comments, but you just take them online if you can for that. It's a closed session meeting, the whole meeting, basically. I mean, you open in session, then you close. And then we would do interviews. Can you do May 10th?
Let's see.
That
Yep.
gives us
It's a Saturday, May 10th.
Saturday, May 10th.
You're just back, Jim.
I have to check.
Oh, shoot.
We'll fix it, it'll fine. Maybe you want to do that part, and I'll type. I'm a fast typer.
Yeah, I'm very fast too, but I'm happy to lead them. I'll lead them. You do it then, because this thing keeps going out.
Does May 10th work?
Search, so some of this may change.
I know.
So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. May 10th, does that work? Yes, yes, yes. Sunday's Mother's Day, right? So we'll do it the day before Mother's Day. Okay.
What?
The other option is we can go to the week after the May 17th, so, I mean, that's still an option.
You're talking about the 24th?
No.
What are you talking about? You mean sometimes that week?
No, either the 10th or the 17th.
Oh, I can't do it. I'd rather be the 10th, but I've got guests coming in on the 17th.
Well, we can have somebody else fill in if we,
No, we'll.
the 10th, okay? Yes, no?
10th, okay?
It's not great, but if that's the day that works.
I thought it would be all day, right?
Yeah, it's all day.
All day.
It's all day. It's a long day. And we'll have to work on location for that. It's usually, typically it's in a boardroom, but it can, if that's depending on parking and
Or a
the
hotel,
logistics,
yeah.
there are logistics that we have to work out with candidates coming in and out and who greets the candidates and all that stuff. So we can work with Victoria a little bit about what the options might be around that. Okay, May 10th? All right.
May 10th, got it.
Then what would happen is the week of May 17th or sometime after that, you would start doing, you could potentially do a site visitation, or you can do it via Zoom. It doesn't have to be in person. But that's where two board members, or if the whole board goes, you have to post the meeting. But that's where you go to the place where the person is currently working, and you check on what their situation is, and you talk to people who have different roles like you, and talk to, principals or whatever. We set up a whole schedule, okay? But that date does not have to be determined right now. If only two of you go, then it's simply not posted and you just go. And again, it can be done via Zoom, okay? Final candidate,
Okay.
yeah, okay?
Because of the Brown Act, I think it can only be two.
Only be two if you're going to go,
Only be
yeah.
two.
Yeah, right.
If it's
No,
not
To
posted.
not be posted, right. The only, and then once,
Doesn't that then reveal who the candidate is and
if
create
only
a
two of
situation
you
for them?
go, no. I mean, not to you necessarily, but they'll know, they're going to know what in their district, It's just, if you're going to go to their district, for example, to talk to people, even if it's only two of you, their district's going to know it's happening.
I think we should see where we are.
Yeah,
by the 10th,
you have time.
There's a lot of difficulty around sending two people to do
Correct,
this.
correct.
If I'm not there,
Yeah, correct.
then I don't feel good about the
Yeah,
process.
and it can be the whole group, it can be, again, be via Zoom too.
Yeah.
Okay? But we have time on that, and then you have to approve it at a regularly scheduled board meeting, whatever that is, probably a June meeting. And I don't know off the top of my head your schedule.
It's June 5th.
June 5th, so it would probably.
And then there's a 2-week break because it's
Right.
we have a sports break, so
Right.
there's no meetings.
So probably June 5th would be that. So as soon as you select your candidate, Then you're going to have the negotiations over the contract. And that's worked out with your attorney and with the candidate. We do ask the candidates to give us a contract parameters, what they want in salary, what they want in fringe benefits, all that. We have a copy of the current, the past contract, so we work with them to get that. You're going to know that before you leave that final day, where they are, and you're going to agree to it in content, and then you turn it over to the attorney to put the contract together. For you, Ms. Perry, the best thing would be to ask your attorney to have a, if you will, a fill in the blank ready, so that we can work from that on the day of the negotiations, okay, of the interviews. Okay? Everybody all ready on that part? So we've talked about candidate recruitment. I talked about the contract parameters. Any questions or clarification needed at this point? Because now we're going to move then to the whole input from you. Joan?
So I just want some clarification about the contract, because in the contracts that we've worked on during this year, there have been changes in negotiations around contracts, like for the acting superintendent, that have not included the whole board. So is that an inclusive process?
Should be.
Or does the president or the clerk get to make those decisions with an attorney or negotiate without all of us?
Well, everybody should see what the attorney drafts before it goes, yeah, because you're gonna, you have to agree to the contract as a board. So you don't want a 3-2 vote on contracts for hiring a new superintendent, hopefully. So
That's going to be on the agenda of the March 13th meeting, right? So,
his contract?
yeah, the acting superintendent.
Acting super, right.
So that's been, the board has approved the appointment subject to a contract. The council has been working on the contract, and the contract is now ready, and it's going to the board. And so the board will be acting on it. So there's nothing, I don't think that's happened that's irregular or
Yeah, I guess my
uncommon.
question would be on that, though, Howard, is that going to be the same contract you would propose for a new superintendent? Yeah, so that's where I think the question is what is that new superintendent's? Now, I think I had received a copy. We tried to get a copy of the previous superintendent's contract, so that would be Dr. Valoria's contract. I think we already have it. I don't know for 100% sure, but I'll need that. But the question would be, the board should look at that and say, are you agreeing to those same things? And also the lawyer needs to look if there's been any legal changes that need to make changes, because there may have been over that period of time.
Yeah, I'm just talking about individual board negotiations.
No.
No.
Yeah,
Include the whole
board needs to all
board
look at,
needs
yeah,
to do it
absolutely.
together.
Well, but it can happen
Back
before
in.
the whole board votes on it.
Yeah, well, so then are you saying that the whole board, yeah.
We get a contract that has been determined by someone else to vote on. So there's a negotiation that's set up that we haven't been included in. That's all I'm asking. I would not like that to happen.
Yeah, and it shouldn't.
So,
Like the one that we got when Dr. Valoria left, I wasn't included in any negotiation.
Both contracts for acting superintendents and yeah, it's a very simple question, because I don't want to get into any discussions about other contracts. All I'm asking is that no board member can make any request to make changes to the contract that is not made as a full board, so that I don't find out when the contract comes back to me for a vote that there's already been discussions that I knew nothing about. That's all.
Is that what you're saying happened with the other one?
And we don't have to go back to the.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, it really, it just is, the attorney should have a fill in the blank, if you will, and from that, every board member should see that, and you know what you're going into. So when the candidate you select says, I want this in fringe benefits, or I want this and whatever, you already know where that goes in the contract.
the thing about
And
it
if
is
you're going to agree to it.
right now, we're confusing the contract for the
Right,
acting
yeah.
superintendent
Right.
and the contract for the new superintendent.
Exactly.
We're mixing those up.
Yep, correct.
But in both cases, we're going to follow the procedures that the board council has recommended.
In dealing with the new superintendent contract, when we're together at the interviews, you're going to know in advance, before, we finish the day, what the parameters are of that contract. There's a boilerplate. Your attorney knows the boilerplate. Your attorney knows the new changes in laws and legality to put into the language. The things that the attorney is going to turn to you on is specific parameters of it. The salary, for example, the fringe benefits, the
Length
work
of.
year.
Yeah.
You know, those are the kinds of things that we will present to the board and getting your authorization, and then we'll help with negotiating it with.
So we're going to need to do that because we have to post that now. We have to.
We
have to
didn't
do
used
that.
to, we now need to
We
post a
need to,
range. It
and
doesn't need to
so-
be a specific, but it does need to be a range.
Yeah.
Because we are such a small district.
Right.
That in the past, as far as the salary of our superintendent was blown out of proportion by certain members of the board that I thought were unfounded. As I talked to PTA earlier today, I was president of a small college, and I made more money than the president of the Cal State system. 23 campuses, thousands of students, and me with 700 students. We need to come to grips with a salary and to know that we're going to pay the top dollar as far as for what's out there. And the other challenge is the previous contract, which I had nothing to do with, was it tied to step increases for the superintendent were tied into the union contract. And is that common? Because to me, it made it even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't paying a lot more to the faculty and staff, 3 or 4%, but by
Added
that
on to that.
occurring, that just kept making our superintendent be off the wall. And
Yeah.
And by law, we had to, because of the contract, we had to do it. And then we had one member who always voted against us, even though it was part of the contract.
Yeah.
And so, and it looked good in the newspapers, the rest of us looked bad.
I don't know that it's common particularly. I mean, it happens. There are superintendents around, even in Orange County, who have a step already built in. It's not tied to anything else except their contract. It's just their contract. And what we can do and will do is provide you with what salaries are in some of the districts around you. For example, what does Irvine pay? What does Tustin pay? You know, some of the Placentia, what does Newport Mesa? Those kinds of things. So you can see kind of what there are around the county. And I've just done that recently and have it. So we would be able to provide you that so you can set the
You have
range.
comparability.
Yeah, but you might also want to look at the size as far as
Right.
of the ones, you know, they're statewide, that's all different.
yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of points that will not interfere with the superintendent being effective as far as why.
I don't think that if you were offering a salary range of whatever, 320,000 to whatever, I don't pick a number, and you don't have it tied to to teachers or, you know, anybody's contracts that they negotiate, it's not an issue.
I'd be more happy with being bonuses, that bonuses then do not go into the ongoing salary.
Right.
Exactly.
Howard?
I inherited it.
This is, I think that what we got here is an example of, instead of just focusing on all the difficulties we've had, focusing on moving forward and maybe working together. I agree with everything he just said. And I think that we could really work together in this. I think tying the superintendent's raises to the union raises created a conflict of interest and bordered on something that was actionable. Because what that does is that gives the superintendent an incentive to increase the salaries of the unions. And when I heard about that many years ago, I was completely stunned, and people talked about it, and it wasn't encouraged to talk about it, and people that talked about it had a hard time. But I think the only thing I didn't agree with, I agree with you about bonuses. The president started out today saying, we can afford this. And so, but the point is, if her vote, and I don't know because I've never spoken with her about this, but if I had been around at that time, I would have voted against it, even if it was in the contract, because I believe there's a conflict of interest. So you have to ask the president what her motives were. But the point is, that said, I just want to associate myself with my colleague's comments because I agreed with his analysis about the whole history of the salary for the superintendent.
What I would say then is if you're in general agreement to that, that'd be a directive to this lawyer to take that out of the contract. And that you can base it on merit, you can base it on evaluations, you can do all those kinds of things. But if you don't want it tied to that, then you ask the attorney to take that out. I don't think most superintendents would find that unusual to have it or not have it. Just not.
And you know, another thing that your attorney is going to be aware of, and that is STRS has certain guidelines in terms of compensation. Not so much the amount, but they look at a superintendent as a classification of one. And that's why you're seeing many districts moving toward, Peggy made mention of like a salary schedule or steps that are built in. They're not linked to any negotiations at all. They're basically linked to a satisfactory evaluation. And they're the steps no different than you would find other personnel groups like management, having management steps over 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. And so STRS is encouraging a move toward that rather than linking this one classification of one to any other of your employee groups.
Would it be correct to say that those kind of innovations or whatever would also promote longevity for a superintendent?
Well, I think it could. I mean, someone who knows that if they accomplish the board's goals and move the district forward, you know, and are rewarded for that, I mean, they're appreciated. And there's probably a correlation with long-term longevity.
You know, there were other STRS changes that were made before that make it less necessary, less desirable to have extra money on car allowances or those kinds of things and just put it all in salary just because of the STRS rules in terms of your retirement. I mean, that's just the case.
Right. And you're allowed to do that once at the beginning of a contract.
Right.
If you are providing, you know, transportation or other kinds of allowances, and then 3 years later, the superintendent wants to put it into salary, which benefits that individual for retirement, that violates a STRS standard. They don't allow that because it's looked on as spiking.
So can I ask a question? So this, because some of this is just for clarification or just and knowledge as well, but so aren't these contracts, a lot of them on these evergreens or like a 3-year, I mean, or is it typically they should be renewed every year? And
Well,
if so, can't you make modifications, like if you come across and see that they're all linked and everybody's getting a raise at the same time and they're raised? Can't you change that in a contract?
Yeah, you can change some things, but most superintendents are going to last for at least a 3 or 4 year contract. I mean, I wouldn't come for a 2-year contract for anything. No, not necessarily. It usually is, most renewals, most extensions to contracts are based on performance and evaluation.
Oh, so having one that's always 4 years
evaluate
and
you
is
should
not,
evaluate
is not
every year.
normal either?
Evaluate every
They
year.
should get them evaluated every year.
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
Yeah.
It's no, it's not always an evergreen. Yeah.
No, I'm not sure of this, but relocation expenses. I have been told that we don't pay relocation expenses. Is that true? So I mean, I never heard of this before as far as.
Most,
relocation.
if someone doesn't live here, they're going to probably ask for relocation expenses. Now, it's often not, it's like, now that doesn't mean you're buying them a house, obviously, but it means that if they're going to move, it's not to exceed $15,000 and you have to see the receipts.
Yeah.
Right? Because it costs to move. If they're moving their family, if they're moving, you know, everything else, they got to get a new house. And so they're probably going to ask for relocation expenses. I mean, that would be not unusual. A lot of superintendents coming in will ask for a coach, somebody to support them as a coach. And that's an expense even if they're an experienced superintendent, they're new to this district. So those are those kinds of expenses that are there.
Just as a background, in previous superintendents that we've hired, we have paid for rent on a house. We've paid for them to stay in a hotel. I mean, we have done some of that.
Yeah, and that may be something that you're going to need to look at. I mean, obviously, we know it's not cheap to move to Orange County, and especially along the coast, right? So, and you probably want them to live fairly close, so they're here.
Have we ever paid for a coach for a superintendent?
And we paid for one that wasn't used, but we still paid.
Yeah.
Is it, so I know, looking at a state for a superintendent possibility, I mean, I studied our ed code a lot, and I know there's going to be there's going to be differences in like state history and things like that, but how vastly different is ed code from one state to the other? I mean, it might be a loaded question, so is it
Vastly
super?
different.
It's vastly, so
Yeah.
it's not just
Yeah.
like, I mean, I know there's philosophical issues that
Right.
you want to
You'd have to break that
navigate.
down by the category. If you're talking about finance as an example, the funding, it's very different from, states, very, very different. When you take a look at our school finance system, it's a very complex system. And, it's a layered system. You have LCFF districts, you have community-funded districts like Laguna. Most other states don't have that. Also, most other states don't break down their grade levels by the number of different configurations you have in California. You have K2 districts, K3 districts, K5 districts, 9-12 districts, 7-12 districts. When I was back east, I talked to a colleague and I made mention of a unified district. He looked at me quizzically. He said, "What do you mean by a unified district?" I said, "Well, like a pre-K to 12. He says, "Aren't all your districts pre-K to 12? They're not in California." So it's a learning curve. A lot of people want to come to California, but there is a learning curve. And that's why the majority of placements of superintendents are typically those that are familiar with California school finance and California school organization.
Is there a state would you lean to look in states that might be more similar as far as California for candidates? Is that?
It's interesting.
It doesn't really exist?
Interesting question. I don't think that matters. I think it's more about whether people want to live in Southern California and want to be in this area, And a gentleman I've been talking to is Arizona, may want to come to California. No, well, that might be it, but it's too hot for anybody. But his daughters and grandchildren have moved here.
Yeah.
So a lot of people want to come because family is closer, and so there's lots of reasons. And obviously, it's a very attractive place to be, but it isn't cheap.
No.
So you have to think about what that's going to look like for people. So we're going to have to move on so we get the rest of this important stuff done. You want to facilitate and me type, or you want to type?
Doesn't matter. What do you want to?
First? Okay, well, you do the first part.
I'll do the first
All
part.
right, so here's what we're going to start with. These are the characteristics, qualities, experiences you'd like to see in a new superintendent. So we're going to ask you, I'm going to go around so we can keep this sort of moving. I'm going to go one by one and ask you to give me one or two, and Mark's typing first, and then I'll finish. Then when we finish that, we're going to go to district strengths and district challenges, okay? And what we want to do is create as much of a profile from your perspective of what you're looking for in this person. So we want to just start really with that whole thing of the characteristics, qualities, experiences that you want to do and see in this new person. And this could be everything like they should have already been a superintendent. They need to have been in some district, whatever the characteristics are.
Right.
They need to be this kind of person and leader. Those are the things we're going to look for. So I'm going to start with Howard, because you're just to my left right now. So
characteristics.
characters,
of a
qualities,
Personal and
experiences.
professional characteristics.
Somebody that has been a superintendent, absolutely. Somebody who has a record of success in a prior superintendency.
So a record of success doing anything specifically, or just successful as a superintendent? Is that?
A record of success that that person, he or she, can demonstrate and inform us of exactly, in other words, this person should have to me, I'm looking for somebody that has a record of success and is able to explain it and sustain it and corroborate it
Okay.
and substantiate it. I'm going to be looking for that kind of an objective record. And I'm going to be looking for somebody who has a strong record of showing a lot of ethical, a record of ethical high standards.
Okay,
And those are among the things I'll be looking for.
okay. Jim?
Sane,
Is sane, even-handed, and collaborative?
sane, someone who's sane.
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 Is sane, collaborative, and
Even-handed, respectful,
is respectful
innovative.
and innovative. Okay? D? Just a couple, and we're going to come back.
Okay. Someone who really cares about students and staff, is respectful, has had success, and knows how they got there, that it didn't just happen, and somebody that doesn't have a really big ego.
Okay. John?
So I think we need somebody with very strong communication skills, and for me, that includes being very accessible and engaged, because we have a small community of a lot of different groups.
I'm just going to repeat it for you and just make sure. Strong communication skills, accessible and
Engaged.
And engaged.
And empathetic.
Empathetic.
Someone who's a visionary and innovative, and someone who knows how to collaborate.
Knows how to, okay. Sherry?
I think my colleagues have touched on a lot of those. I like humble and embraces. Let me rethink this for a second. Someone that is humble and embraces humility in a sense that it encourages them to learn from that in a positive way.
Okay.
I don't know how to put that in one word.
Okay.
I like innovative and an out-of-the-box thinker, someone that has a unique approach to creating a more unique environment. I think we have a really cool opportunity here, and I would love to see someone come in and really take what we already do well and just pour more into that and really make it flourish.
Okay.
I like honest and very collaborative with the community at large on how to make a whole environment, not just, this is not a little bubble of our school, but we are part of something bigger than itself.
Yeah. Howard? We're going back in case if you got something new.
Did you have
Yeah,
anything
well,
you wanted to add?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think that, I think in terms of objective criteria, not subjective. I think if somebody has a track record of success, it's going to be because they were innovative, collaborative, and creative. And that's what I'm going to be looking for, somebody who can sit down with us and say, this is the challenges I faced. These were the weaknesses of the last district I was in. These were the strengths. This is how we addressed the weaknesses, and this is how we accentuated and sustained the success, the strengths. And so, yeah, you know, I will say that I can remember a superintendent here a long time ago who was one of the kindest, most loving, most gentle people that I've ever met in my life. And he took care of students, and he took care of teachers, and he took care of parents. And so I'll look for the objective, but if I get into the subjective, I'm going to be thinking of Dr. Ullum, John Ullum, William Ullum. His son was John. But I think of if I had a role model, it would be Dr. William Ullum, who was
caring.
Everybody in this town will always remember him as the kindest man, and yet you didn't mess with the guy, and he was a hard driving superintendent, and that teachers and everybody learned to collaborate with him, and he was a really strong leader. And so, again, if we get into the subjectives, that's what I would be looking for.
Okay. Jim? Nothing else? Dee, something else?
I think everyone did a great job.
I think they did a good.
Joan, anything else? Sherry, anything else, do you think? So remind me, if you think of something else, we can always add it to the thing, just email one of us. You all you have our email addresses, you know how to get a hold of us. So now, we're gonna-
District strengths.
District strengths, what are the strengths? And we'll do the same thing, kind of go around, we'll start on your side first, because I already started with Howard and I put him on the spot, so I'm gonna put you on.
It was bragging rights.
I think our district strengths are we have very creative and talented staff.
Creative and talented.
I think we have an extremely supportive community that uplifts, that is all in on supporting our students, whether they're involved in the schools or not. I think we have an extremely supportive immediate parent group that helps the teachers hands-on as well as just supports this as well.
Okay, Joan?
I would have said incredible teachers and staff, wonderful parents and community, so I'm seconding that. We also have, the kind of resources that have allowed us to create not just wonderful plants, but, we start in preschool, we go all the way through 12th grade, obviously, but with after-school special programs. I mean, the opportunities for kids in this district are really unbelievable, and we're able to do a lot, and we are able to really be cutting edge and think about new and different things because we're resource rich. So
Resource rich for sure, yeah. Dee?
Agree. Our wonderful families, staff, our town. Also, that we do have resources, we do have money, and we're not in a position that a lot of places are, and that we're small, so we can make changes fairly quickly.
Okay. Jim? By the way, Jeff, you're going to get to answer this next week, so be prepared. Got it.
Been really excellent. We also have great relationships with our professional unions.
Yeah.
I was very impressed when I first interviewed the superintendent to find out how many grievances. I'm a big believer in how many grievances make it to you, and I don't think there were any. And so I think that that's a real statement about allowing, setting the right tone, having the right administrators in place, and having the right processes as far as to work out differences.
Yeah, good point. Howard?
I think we have a lot of social cohesion in town, and as a community, as a town, whether it's the city government or the school governance, I think there's a pretty high level of literacy and interest in the community. I think that's a really positive thing, even if there are controversies or whatnot. Everybody cares about the schools here, and some people argue about who cares the most or whatever, but the fact that if they're having an argument about I care more than you, that's a kind of a good problem to have, because there's a really high level of sense of personal and civic efficacy about being involved in the schools, and for that matter, in the city. So I think this is a town that has a lot of civic, public commons awareness and consciousness. I think that's the real strength of the school district. I guess I would just repeat that people care passionately about the schools. I think more so than about the city stuff.
Okay. Other strengths you see? Okay, so now the challenges. As we talk to candidates, what are we going to say to them? It sure isn't money, so we know that's not as much of a challenge. So challenges, let's start with you, Dee.
Being small may be one of the challenges, because we can't offer a lot of the there are classes we can't offer because we simply don't have the students to be in the classes. So those experiences, I think also when you're in a larger district with lots of schools, there's more collaboration and innovation, and you find out more things that are going on. We're pretty much by ourselves.
Okay, good point. Joan, do you have some?
Come back
Okay. Howard?
It's funny, because I think a lot of the things that are the strengths are also the sources of weaknesses. I think, we're a basic aid district, and that's, generally speaking, that's a good thing.
Right.
But I think I noticed, starting about 20 years ago, that something started to change. We had bylaws, and we had student handbooks and student parent handbooks and whatnot. They had a lot of due process and making sure people were heard and whatnot, and that was systematically excised from our organic documents. And one of the things that I noticed that was occurring during that period is, in an average daily attendance district, there's an incentive for teachers and administrators and school boards to retain students and retain families. In a basic aid district, you can sometimes see at the school site level, sometimes above, sometimes below, a little bit of an attitude, if you don't like it here, you can leave. And there's no consequence for failure in that sense. And so you get in a situation where particularly parents who are struggling, parents who are doing well and happy that the schools cause their property values to go up, and they're all, that's great. It's a success story. But what about the parents who are distressed? What about the kids that are having crises? If they go in and they are sometimes making demands for help or support or something that other people aren't, is there a tendency to show them the door? Say, this is how it's going to be, and if you don't like it, you can leave. And that's something that happens in basic aid districts that doesn't happen in average daily attendance districts. So I've always thought that we really have to pay attention and make sure that we don't let that happen. And so that's an area of weakness that I would identify.
Okay. Jim?
I would disagree with Howard. Totally. That I think this district has been on top of it. The chronic truancy is a challenge because we have so many rich families who take trips and move their children at whims but I think that we do everything possible as far as 40% of the students in this district are financially challenged in one way or the other. A large number of our families are home rich. They have big mortgages and they have very little cash left. As far as we started a family resource center. We've done everything possible and since I've been on the board as far as to deal with all the issues that Howard has talked about, and you can track how we've done, how with the truancy, it's gone down every year, how at every one of these schools, they have a whole team that works on these types of things, that we want students here. More students are moving into this district than are leaving this district.
So it's how to make sure, though, that you do take care of the kids who are struggling and the kids who have needs that may not be as apparent in a community like this.
I actually agree with what he's saying, and I've been watching it and monitoring it, and it's better now than it was 10 years ago. So I agree that progress has been made.
Yeah. Other challenges? Jen?
To turn theirs off. Oh, there we go. So I want to second what Jim said. I mean, we have in our recent social and emotional development data, almost 90% of students report that they feel like there's at least one person on campus that they can go to get help. We are really great with the
So that's really that's real strength we should add to that.
That is a real strength.
Mental health.
Yes, we have, Dr. Keller has done an incredible job with all of that. For me, the challenges are more national in scope. There are large national challenges that I really feel the district has to stay ahead of, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to be on the board. One of those is reading. That's a national issue. Another one is education technology. As technology has changed and COVID brought a lot of technology into the classroom, it's very hard for districts to get ahead of the game and figure out what the right balance is in terms of curriculum development, the use of technology. And, when I say I want someone innovative and visionary, I'm not looking for like all kinds of crazy things. I'm looking for somebody who's aware of these national challenges and thinks about how to make sure our district is on the cutting edge of addressing those issues.
Okay. Sherry?
I appreciate what Joan said, because I do agree with that. I mean, the technology is a big one, I think, for me, and how do you leverage it for the district to be the best that it can be, but how do you mitigate it so that it's not so involved in the day-to-day teaching, so that balance and some really creative thought processes, and make sure that that's not leaned into. I think one of our challenges is that we've been historically, it feels like we're always trying something new. And so I don't think we've had consistency. It's gotten a lot better, but I think we were kind of trying a lot of new things for a while. And so that consistency has been kind of lacking. So I think that's been a challenge. I think that there's, I think we need to be mindful of, oh, this is a hard one because I think I'm gonna get in trouble. I think we need to be really mindful that as a community, we don't have a sense that we are entitled to everything that we want, and that we're not thinking about how our actions impact others. That goes for myself, but it goes for everyone. And I think that's something that we sometimes lose track of, because we've been very, our district has been very focused within itself, and not how our district fits within the bigger picture of our community. And I think that's actually a huge challenge for us. And I think we need to look beyond the walls of our school at how we impact and function outside of
Inside it. Yes?
Yeah, I like what everybody said. One thing I want to, sort of augment is that I have been watching, like, the Resource Center and the things that have been done and the things that are done for bilingual kids, cross-cultural things. I'm pretty pleased with it, and that's one of the reasons I ran, because I want to support that. But on the other hand, having resource centers and doing many of these really good things that we're doing is not a substitute for restoring some of the civics that have been lost in the process. And that includes a more orderly process when people have grievances, when there are complaints, when there are disputes and whatnot, having due process, having equal protection. In other words, we have to institutionalize the same values that cause us to have compassion and to take measures to help people who need help. We have to institutionalize those values in the procedures and the practices that we have when students and parents as citizens are dealing with the school district as the state. We got to remember that the schools are the state. And when people are dealing with the schools, they're dealing with the state. And so we got to make sure that their rights are protected. And I think we've lost that. And we should definitely do the things that we're doing, but we should also restore the vitality and the robustness of our due process and equal protection for people when they're in trouble or when they're in conflict. And I don't think we've handled that very well in the last 10 years. There have been examples of where there's been highly inflammatory conflicts and things that have spun out of control and people's rights have gotten trampled on. And I think we need to pay attention to that, because that's part of being humane to the people in the community.
I think one thing we've missed is talk about the environment, as far as how this school district is so tied into the environment. Our curriculum is tied into the environment. So we really should be looking for someone who's very respectful and innovative about things that has to do with the environment.
Okay. And that's kind of a strength of yours,
That's
isn't
one of the
it?
greatest-
Yeah, yeah.
one of the greatest
How you
strengths
pay
of the
attention to the environment. Yeah,
Is the environmental ethics that we have,
yeah.
except for the football field.
Right, right. Right, right.
With the exception of the petroleum-based football field, which we're trying to fix.
Anything else? I think you need to say that one of your challenges right now is the board is new and new working together. And that's going to be a challenge for a while. And hopefully you're going to all fix that up. But that is a challenge right now. And it's something that your community has said to you, and you need to pay attention to it. So I think that's important. You know, we're going to, I think I said this when we presented, the first question candidates ask us is, how is the board, right? And they can watch your board meetings now. Of course, when I was applying so long ago for a superintendent, you couldn't watch board meetings.
They didn't even have TVs.
They didn't have TVs. We weren't required to, we never chose to, huh? It was a way better time, trust me. Way better time, way easier to deal with. Other challenges.
One of the things I'm going to look for in the new superintendent is somebody that is really looking for a challenging board to work with.
Okay, we'll put that in the list.
Well, I think one of the challenges is a false sense of what is a false sense of knowing. I'm kind of struggling with some of the ways to define it. And I'm trying to be really careful. It's kind of a false sense of not knowing what we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that there's something up to no good, right? But yet, yesterday we had a great session on curriculum, just the process, and what came out was it's not good practice to enroll students without approved curriculum. So it was right to bring the process. We had students that are top science-minded students and politically minded students brought forward their thoughts that had been from fall that they felt still needed to be addressed. And so we say we listen to what our students want, but they wouldn't come forward if they didn't feel heard. And so I think there's this false sense that we do things right when we might, and it kind of comes back to what I said before, where maybe we need to take a step back and realize that maybe we don't know what we don't know, and be more open to the fact that we could use some more perspective, perhaps. I mean, you had talked about, not the whole salary thing that Jim brought up. Well, we could have changed the contract, but nobody changed the contract. So I think there's things we're trapped in this place. I think sometimes that people don't know what they don't know. So having somebody come in and work with that, because it's going to need to be changing the ship a little bit, is going to be something they're going to have to take on.
Yeah, the flip side of that, just to be fair, I appreciate your comment, is also the sense that everything is wrong and you don't know what you don't know. So I think it's, I'm not sure what to do with that in terms of a search.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think,
The mindset of realizing that maybe we need to have more perspective of realizing we don't always. We do a lot of things great.
but what I heard was not so much about what the content was, it was how. And I think that the how is important, right? And I won't tell you what I actually think right now, but I think that, in fact, an emergency meeting on that might not have been the most necessary thing to do. And what I heard wasn't about what the content was, it was about the how. And paying attention to the how tells everybody back there who's looking at my back that that's kind of what we need to be paying attention to. Because how gets perceived by these people, they're seeing what you're doing. So, there's lots of things that need to be done in any district, and it's not unusual. But you all have to figure out that to work together, you've got to come together around common procedures and common ways to do things, and deal with it so that people trust you with it. I mean, that's a big deal.
So I agree with what you just said. I think there's context. If you isolate any of the problems that we've had at one meeting or another meeting, or as you're referring to the meeting yesterday, if you isolate any one of those things, you can argue whichever way you want in terms of what was appropriate and what wasn't appropriate. But there's nothing normal about what's gone on for the last 3 or 4 months. And so, for example, if you talk about how are you going to negotiate a contract with the assistant superintendent, you have to say, well, how did we negotiate the contract for the superintendent to leave? I've been told by multiple people that none of the board members had an opportunity to read the contract before they signed it. And so, when you have that kind of a situation, then the niceties of how you negotiate another particular contract. So I think what's fair to say is that this board, depending on, regardless of who you like on the board and don't like on the board, or who you think's doing a good job, or who you don't think's. This board has been under a lot of stress because nothing has been done in a way that's normal or even in compliance with the law for several months. And so we're all,
Please don't go back again.
Yeah, I
no,
think,
well, no, you can't, no, well, no, listen. If you're gonna talk about what should have been done or shouldn't have been done yesterday, you have to also talk about what should have been done or shouldn't have been done the day before, or don't talk about it. So in other words, we can't sit here and say, oh, let's talk about what happened yesterday, but let's not talk about what happened last week. So I didn't bring up what happened yesterday. I have my own views about it. But one thing that is not fair is to say we're going to be selective about when we're going to look at the past, and we're going to be selective about when we're not going to look at the past.
my point on what was commented on was not what was discussed. It was about how it was done. Whether right, wrong, or otherwise anybody perceived, it was how it was done. The content may have been great.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
The content is not as important as how things have been
Yeah.
done since about last November 21st.
Well, come on, very simply, you scheduled a meeting and didn't even ask if I was available. So, I mean,
I
it has
didn't
nothing
schedule-
to do with November or
I didn't schedule a
December. It's a
meeting.
very simple thing about how the board needs to work together, and let's save it for the governance meeting.
Yeah.
In your email, she talked, I'm scheduling this meeting.
I scheduled,
Again, I had no idea
You
how
can't
Mrs.
schedule
Morgan
a
is
meeting, you're not the
scheduling a
board
meeting.
president.
Okay, so, yeah, so my point has to do with what you all just said, because some people thought they couldn't call, some people thought they could. I don't, it wasn't about the what, it's about the how things got done. And and moving on from that, that left for, I'm assuming Joan and Jim felt uncomfortable that a meeting got called that they weren't going to be able to attend about what was apparently, right, and an emergency meeting.
Announcement that there was an emergency
Special meeting,
meeting
well-
with nobody asking me if I would.
It was a special meeting, like this one.
Okay,
either way,
Can you stop
it's-
mumbling under your breath while I'm trying to talk? I got a public announcement that there was a meeting on Wednesday at 3:30. Nobody asked if I was available. In less than 48 hours, you would only do that if it's an emergency. I had no idea what it was about. It was totally inappropriate. No board would do that. In 40 years of being on committees and working in higher education and working in various forms of governance, I have never on a committee had a meeting announced to me without having an invitation or an inquiry about whether I'm available at the time the meeting is going to be held. That's insane.
I'm sorry, and I understand why you're upset. I had no idea that's how it was done.
Well, and that's, so that, again, yeah, so that's my point. You need a superintendent that you're all going to listen to. That's
Yeah.
part of the deal. I'm gonna say that. All right. Anything else on challenges or strengths that you want to highlight? So we won't be meeting with you for a while. We'll get all the advertising go. You'll see the schedule of how we're meeting with groups the week of the 17th. You know that I'm meeting next Monday with the Teachers Association Executive Board. I'm meeting with cabinet leaders, confidentials, and maybe CSEA. If I can't do that, you may have to do that one because I have a 4 o'clock thing in Newport Beach. And PTA Council
If
also.
it's the following week.
That's the week of the 17th. We'll set that
Yeah.
up. Yes, and now we're going to go to closed session.
I get a motion to adjourn to closed session?
There it is. Sweet.
Session. Okay, all in favor?
I need to vote for you.
I vote.